Hey everyone, today we'll be taking a look at how to set up defense kits. Having a great strategy for when and where to use defense kits at the best location can make extreme difficulty, or really any difficulty, much easier. What I want to do in this video is go over general tips that will work on most maps, and then go into a few specific maps that differ from the norm. As always, if you enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more gaming reviews and discussions. With that said, let's get into it. Now, it can be a little difficult to set up proper defenses with random groups, as everyone tends to just rush to defense kits. However, if you are playing with friends or a pre-made group, having an exterminator on your team can help out a ton. The main reason is for their perk Combat Engineer, which gives them a 20% chance to restore an expended defense kit. This perk can make or break a group while defending against a horde, as getting an extra auto turret or even electric grid on certain maps can make a world of difference. That said, it's not required to have an exterminator in your group to succeed, and it is a proc. But if you do have someone playing that class in your group, make sure to leave them defense kits if they have selected that perk. Best to communicate with them, as certain locations I'll go over later are so large that there will not be enough time for one person to set up all the defenses by themselves. There's a few classes that can also buff stationary turrets and mortar as well, which you can actually even stack if you want to. One of the big choices when it comes to defense kits is whether or not to save certain defense kits and breaching charges that you find for horde battles later on in the current map you are playing. Generally speaking, with the original 4 episodes, the first horde battle will be easier than the second one, so saving any auto turrets or electric grids that you find for later on is generally a good idea. For the expansion levels, things get a little more murky, as even the early level hordes can be really intense, so it's not always best to save the defense kits for later. While mortar and stationary turrets can be incredible also, the electric grids and auto turrets are great for protecting your blind spots. On extreme, it can be really challenging to get through even an easy horde using no defense kits, so it's alright to use some of them. So let's first go over the best ways to position each type of defense kit, then we can go into specific levels that require different strategies. When it comes to electric grids, you always want to place them on the ground and never on fences, unless you end up filling every spot and have nowhere else to put them. That said, they can break after electrocuting a certain number of zombies, so saving one as a replacement if you have them in abundance can be a good idea. The problem is, when you place them on fences, they are essentially useless, but when they are placed on the ground, they can help create kill zones and protect your blind spot. Not to mention, they can stop a bull right in their tracks, which can absolutely save you in certain situations. Similarly, positioning for auto turrets can make a huge difference. When World War Z first came out, auto turrets originally had unlimited ammo, so could hypothetically be firing away during the entire horde. However, an early on update changed their mechanics, so now they will run out of ammo, and either you or someone in your group will have to interact with them to refill its ammo. This is why placing them in the right area is key, because if they are facing towards a horde, they will constantly need to be refilled. Which in most cases is not ideal, as you will probably do more damage to the horde by shooting your gun than constantly running over and refilling the auto turret's ammo. But where they do shine is protecting your blind spots, and on certain maps you can strategically place them together with electric grids to create kill zones while also protecting you and your group. A great example is the very first level, which has 4 spots to place auto turrets. As you can see, there's 2 spots on each side that you can place a turret, and each location is facing a different way. While the horde is charging you in the front, smaller waves of zombies will always spawn behind you. It's best to have the auto turrets facing behind you to help protect your blind spot, so most of your group can focus on the main horde. Because if you do not, I've seen so many groups get overwhelmed by the zombies from behind and then sandwiched in by the zombies in the front. While the auto turrets by themselves probably won't be able to kill all the zombies from behind, it can make a difference of only needing one person in your group needing to watch the backside instead of maybe 2 or 3. When it comes to mortars and stationary turrets, I generally use them up at each horde defense unless there is an overabundance of them. Generally speaking, you will want to use your mortar first when the horde comes, as they generally only hit targets from very far away, which will be highlighted in a red circle. They can be devastatingly powerful, so I do recommend using them. The same goes for stationary turrets. The best positioning for both can vary from map to map, although there usually isn't as much of a difference for them as there are for electric grids and auto turrets for where you place them. The only thing you have to watch out for is on certain levels, the hordes can spawn from one of 2 areas. So sometimes it's best to hold on to them until the horde actually physically spawns, so you know where they're coming from and make sure you don't waste the defense kit. So that's the general basics of setting up defenses, so I do now want to go over a few specific examples. However, I won't be going over every level, as most are fairly straightforward. Let's quickly start things off with New York's Tunnel Descent. This level has 2 hordes, the first one being among the easiest in the game. The second horde can sneak up on you and kill the train driver, so it's best to save almost all the defense kits you find in the first horde defense spot for the second one, especially the auto turrets. Jerusalem's brain surgery has 3 horde defense spots, the second one being one of my personal favorites. In the first defense spot, I would recommend using 1 stationary turret and saving any auto turrets you find. It's not the easiest horde defense location, but the auto turret is much more helpful with the other 2 defense spots. Next, choosing which kits to save from the house horde defense spot can be a little tricky since there are generally more than the group can carry. I'd recommend using the barbed wire as that is actually quite useful here. Other than that, save auto turrets and electric grids till your team's inventory is full and then use whatever is left over. As long as your team works together covering each area and filling in when someone needs to refill their ammo, you can get by fine without using all of the defense kits. However, I would strongly recommend using any breaching charges on this container here outside the house as well. It almost always has 2 defense kits, a tier 3 weapon, and a med kit. You just have to be very quick as the timer for this defense spot is a little too short, so this is one defense spot that all group members will have to set up defenses. For the final horde battle, a stationary turret is best set up on the far side here. These zombies can blindside you, and having a turret to mow them down makes things a lot easier. Similarly, I'd recommend placing an electric grid on either or both sides to your left and right. These spots seem to be where zombies creep in most often, although you really can't go wrong with electric grids here. For auto turrets, set them away from the horde, facing left and right, as placing them on the horde will just make them constantly run out of ammo. In Tokyo setting sun, I would recommend saving an auto turret from the first defense for the second one, as they are not as useful as the stationary turrets for this defense. And those stationary turrets can be devastating, so I'd recommend using them along with any barbed wire that you may find. While both are good during the second defense, they are much better for the first. When it comes to the second battle, there are quite a few spots where you can set up defenses, mainly the 2 platforms. This horde battle is one that has a really low timer and a huge area to gather defense kits from, so it's impossible for one person to do it themselves. The best way to go is to have everyone set up defense kits on the right platform, assuming your back is to the area that you are defending. While I know you can split up your group, in general I found splitting up the group just leads to the left side getting overrun. Setting up on the right side also allows you to quickly run over to the secondary defense spot, which can easily get overrun. Also on the right side there is this little nook where you can set up a stationary turret. It's actually a really great spot to shoot from, however this causes the zombie pathing AI to change, so you have some break off and attack the person on the turret. It's best to have the zombies in one big group so you do not have to split up your team's fire, so I find avoiding that spot to work best. In Tokyo Final Call, I would recommend saving any auto turrets from the first horde defense spot, as it is one of the easier hordes in the game. However, I do generally use the other defense kits I find here, although saving 1 stationary turret isn't a bad idea. For the last Tokyo level cruise control, both horde battles can be quite challenging. While rare, defense kits can spawn at the first horde defense area and they can be extremely helpful. For the second defense battle at the edge of the ship, auto turret and electric grid placement is very important. While hordes will spawn in one of 3 areas in front of you, there are tons of spots that smaller waves will spawn from behind you. To prevent being overwhelmed, you will want to place the auto turrets facing behind you to keep them in check. Similarly, place the electric grids in the back center here to cover your blind spots and create a kill zone. Since special zombies spawn fairly regularly behind you, having electric grids here can be a lifesaver. Moscow Key to the City is another level that has multiple hordes, and in the second horde fight, 3 different locations that you can set up defenses. The first horde defense is actually one of the more difficult ones, so if you do find any defense kits, do not hesitate to use them, even on easier difficulties. There's almost always an abundance of kits in the second horde area anyways. When it does come to the second horde defense, setting up in the mall is by far the easiest way to get by. This gives you the high ground in multiple spots where you can shoot the Zeeks before they reach you. And remember again, this is for extreme difficulty. If you're playing on the easier difficulties, it's fine to defend on one of the 2 spots outside the mall. But if you are setting up in the mall, I wouldn't even bother with the mortar, as it's not worth risking having someone run back to the mall after shooting it off. Also, if you have a screamer zombie during the horde, it's fine. Just ignore it and wait to kill it once the horde stops spawning. So many times I see people try and run out while the horde is coming at them to kill the screamer, and it's just not worth it. And finally, for this level, it's extremely important to not unlock either door in the room next to the radio room. Once you unlock the locks, zombies can then barge in, making it so you will have to now watch your backside. When it comes to setting up defenses in the mall, try to get at least 1 electric grid in the area closest to you on either side. Stationary turrets are amazing here, so I'd recommend placing one in the center, and then put one down on the side where the horde is coming from once they spawn. Now for the DLC levels, things are generally different. It seems like the level design team actively designed levels in a way that somewhat discourages saving defense kits, as some of the early game horde defenses can be extremely challenging. Generally speaking, I would say use the defense kits you find in each horde defense spot outside of saving one auto turret from the French resistance level's first horde defense. The auto turrets can be extremely helpful in the second horde defense spot if you set them up facing the subway entrances. Hordes will constantly spawn from these entrances while you gather supplies, and an auto turret protecting them will make your life so much easier. But otherwise, generally set up the defense kits to protect your blind spots, as that will make defending against hordes much easier. So those are the basics of setting up defense kits against hordes. Your group setup can also affect if you need to save kits as well. For instance, if you have multiple Hellraisers, you can get by some early game horde defenses without defense kits at times. But in general, these tips should help on extreme difficulty, and of course, knowing the levels inside out will also be key. On lower difficulties, the horde waves are of course much easier, so there's more flexibility when playing on them, so do keep that in mind. Also, everything will depend on which defense kits actually spawn for you. I've had extremely hard defense spots spawn only one or sometimes zero defense kits before, making them extremely difficult. Other times I'll have an overabundance of auto turrets and electric grids, which makes the horde defense a breeze. But anyways, that's a broad overview of how to set up defense kits. If you haven't watched them already, I do have build guides for every class, which will also make a big difference while playing on extreme difficulty. Thanks so much for watching, I'll see you all in the next video.